So in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to set up and sharpen a Stanley number 3 bench plane. So after you've been using your plane for a while, you're going to want to sharpen your blade. Now this is good practice for any woodworker, and that is what I'm going to be showing you today. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to take all the components apart, and I'm going to show you how to sharpen the blade. And then we're going to put it all back together, and then we're going to set the blade using a couple of these knobs and levers up here. So the only tool that you're going to need for taking one of your planes apart is just a simple screwdriver. Now, one of the most important things you want to make sure that you have right when you're taking apart a plane like this and undoing all these screws and stuff is that you want to make sure that the head of the screwdriver is nice and big. You wouldn't want to have a screwdriver like this with a flat head like that it's really thin, you know, because when you're going in and you're tightening these down or loosening them, it can actually mar the screws, and you wouldn't want that on one of your nice planes. So whenever you're doing something like this, just make sure you grab the right screwdriver head and the biggest one possible that can span, the distance of the screw. So now we'll just start taking it apart. So the first thing you're gonna do here is you're gonna pop the lever cap, and that is just using a force like that to flip this open, and this should just slide out just like that, and you're just gonna set that aside. So now we can see that there's been some buildup of some other shavings, and you can just wipe those out. We'll get this nice and clean a little bit later. But now, since that lever cap is out, you can adjust this, and that should loosen this up, just like that. So now you'll take this out, and this is just the blade, and I believe this is called the chip breaker around here, and you'll set that aside. So now you can see all these other shavings in here, and this could even, over time, when you're using the plane on wood, this blade could be riding up like this due to all the shavings that have built up in here. So you're just going to want to go in there and clean that up. So we'll just take this out, unscrew that with a nice wide screwdriver, and we can just clean these up. And if you want to go farther, you can even take this whole section out right here called the frog, and you can get that all oiled up too. So now we'll get the lever cap and the chip breaker and iron, and we're going to separate these right now. No, actually we can set this aside for now. We don't need to do anything to this. But do you see this nice large screw right there? That's what I was saying about the big head, and you wouldn't want something small that would damage that. So this is the biggest screwdriver I have. I know it's not the biggest one, that's sold, but it'll work. So we're just gonna unscrew this, just like that. And it has these nice little grooves in here for your fingers. We'll set that aside. And now the chip breaker and the iron are now separate. Now we can see what all of our work has done on those boards that we've planed. So now you can feel, well, you can't feel, but I can, on your own plane if you could. But this blade right now is very dull. I can feel it with my finger, and it's lost its edge basically. So we'll get that cleaned up. So now I've got some WD-40, which I'm going to be applying to the plane, and I also got the plane body and the frog. Now we'll clean this up and get all these little bits of the shavings out. So what I like to do, it's really simple and it doesn't take a lot of time, is I just use an old paintbrush. And all I do here just like that. And I just dust all those out. Just like that. Get all that out. So now we can put some WD-40 on here. Or if you have Ballistol or anything like that, that would also work. So I'm just gonna spray a little bit on here. Like that. Paper towels. I'm just gonna get in there, clean that right up. And this will ensure that you have an absolutely flat surface right here for your blade to sit. There. Now if you wanted to, because everything's apart right now, I guess you could, if you wanted to, go through the process of cleaning all this up and taking those screws out. And if you don't want to fuss with that, it's not a big deal. But now we can go and sharpen up that blade that we took out earlier. So there are many different ways of sharpening a blade, whether it's an iron for a plane or a chisel or anything related to woodworking. There's always going to be hundreds of ways to get an edge on a certain piece. So what I like to use is just wet and dry sandpaper. Now I've seen some people use diamond stones and leather strops and all that, but I just like to use wet and dry sandpaper. You can pick it up at your local hardware store, and it's pretty cheap if you buy a good amount and maybe on a deal or something. But what I also like to use, because it is wet and dry, I like to use Windex, and what that does is that carries away all of the shavings when you're sharpening. It just carries those away, and it leaves the sandpaper with a nice cutting edge. So to do this, I'm just going to take out a piece of 400 grit, and I'm going to place it on, oh yeah, I hadn't even talked about this yet. This is a piece of glass that I got from an old refrigerator, and the purpose of this is to ensure that you are getting a nice 100% flat edge when you are sharpening. And if you do this on your workbench like this, over here, it isn't necessarily as flat as it could get, So I just like to use a piece of glass. I know some other people like to do that. So that's what I'm going to use. So I've spread a little bit of Windex on here, and the motion that you're going to want to use is with the bevel facing down towards your workbench. You're going to want to put pressure here and hold the back like this. So you're just going to want to go like this. Then you're going to press down, and you're going to want to go from about a 30-degree angle right here, and you're going to go down to a 20. And this is just a very subtle movement, and that gets a nice bevel on the edge of your plane iron. So what I also like to do is I just like to clamp a piece of wood down on the edge of the sandpaper, and what this does, it just helps make sure that the sandpaper stays in place. I can move it around with my hand, but it keeps it in place when I'm going in this motion. So all I'll do here is hold the plane iron and just go in this motion. Just like this. And I'll do that for maybe 20 or 30 strokes, depending on how dull the blade was. And I can already feel this edge being picked up a little bit. So once I've done about 30 strokes using the 400 grit, I'll move up to the 600 and then the 800. And also, after each grit of maybe 30 or 40 times, you're going to feel this wire on the back of here, this little burr on the flat side. So what you're going to want to do is place with the bevel side facing up this way. You're just going to want to set it down flat on your sandpaper, and you're just going to pull it just like that. And what this will do, and you do that maybe only 2 times, and what that will do is that will pull that burr off there, so then you have a nice edge. Alright, so now that we have our nice polished edge on our plane iron, that's really nice, isn't it? Now that we have that, we can then put our chip breaker and our plane iron back together. So what you're going to want to do here is place the chip breaker on the back side and have this, there's this bevel right here, and then on the back side there's the bevel of the cutting iron. So you're going to want to place this part maybe about a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch. Just like that. Let me see if I could. Just like that. And then I'm going to take this screw, put that in there, adjust it one more time, hold it on the end so that these sides are flush, and then I'm just going to go in and tighten that down. So now we can put a little bit more WD-40 on there. And we can go back and get the chip breaker, or not the chip breaker, the lever cap and the screw that we took out. So this screw is going to go right back in here at that angle. And you're going to tighten that back down. And you can leave that loose for now, and we can go back and adjust it later. But you're just going to take then your lever cap, place that in there, and lock this down in the back. And as you can see, it's very loose right now, and this can come out. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to pop it back out like that, and come back in with the screwdriver and tighten that down even more until it's nice and firm. Then you're going to go back, and now it's too tight. So you're just going to want to mess around with this and play around just a little bit where this locks down nice and firm. See, that was too loose. So go in there one more time, maybe a 1/4 turn. There. That's good. So I'm just going to be adjusting the plane iron just with this knob in the back made of brass. We're going to go on both sides, and we're going to make sure that that's the same thickness. So we're just going to take on the right. Now you see I didn't, or on the left, and you see I didn't get anything. And now we're going to go back on the right. And you see I just got a big, great shaving. But on the left side, I didn't get anything. So what that means is that our iron is not in the center, and it's not set up. So we're just going to want to ever so slightly adjust the plane using this lever right here, So now I have the shavings very nice on both sides. These two shavings feel very similar. Alright guys, thanks for watching that video. I really enjoyed making it. And those steps that I showed you, they can work for any size plane. I have number 5 here, and they can work for a 6, an 8, even smaller. This was number 3 that I used in this video, but it could work for any size. I hope you guys enjoyed.